We're here. We're going to make this happen. Hello, everyone. This is Stephanie, host of In Between Artists podcast, and I'm joined with my very first special guest, Audrey Pray Jr. If you've not listened to this amazing episode, definitely it's streaming everywhere you like to listen to podcasts. Today, we are essentially having a catch up. I'm kind of thinking of this as like an accountability check too, because, our episodes are pre-recorded. So this is an opportunity to just dive back in and see what's going on, get some real life updates. And, the other hope and desire that I have with this podcast is that, Audrey's story is going to connect and relate and resonate with someone. And Audrey's here. She's a resource. So hoping that people will, this will be like an icebreaker, if you will, for people to feel like they can reach out and connect to you. Let's dive into it. How are you? Where are you?
Feeling good. Thank you so much for having me back on. It's good to be back. I really appreciate our conversation last time. So I'm happy to be back again. And like you said, I hope that, the things that we talked through, I hope that they can be of use to everybody that's listening. No need to do it twice, wrong. So it's like, if you can learn something from what I've been doing, that praise God for it.
Right.
I am in Panama right now after living in Peru for 2 years. I've been in Panama now for just 2 weeks, but I think I'll be here probably till maybe top of June. And then we'll see where to go from there, honestly.
Are you scouting Panama as a potential new location?
Yes. Yeah, I'm always scouting. Right now, I like it. I mean, it's hot, but I like it, and I can find affordable housing, which is a blessing. Okay. And there's water, and
in the city.
In Panama City, exactly. So
I've heard a lot of things that like Panama City is getting to be like similar pricing to the U.S. So curious about that.
Especially, I mean, they use U.S. currency here, so I mean, it was a surprise for me, of course, because I'm used to getting to a place and having to immediately convert my currency. And there's like, oh no. And honestly, you get like a little excited as an expat because you're like, okay, cool. Like, what's going to be the exchange? Usually you're like, all right, I'm making out good. Neck and neck. No difference. $100, $100. So it's a little different. I mean, I don't know. U.S. prices. I mean, I will say this, I lived in New York, I lived in DC, so I lived in some of the cities in the states that are more expensive. So I think that maybe if I had lived in a place in the States where housing was a bit more affordable, I would feel it. But I still feel like I'm getting like a lot for it because I'm used to New York being so exuberant in its prices.
That's the thing with money, like in all money conversations, it's relative, know? So how we look at that, even like living situations, is very different. I grew up in South Florida, so all of my experiences north of the Mason-Dixon line have been like, hello, porque indeed. Okay, so what's new for your business? And maybe we should just, if you want to like throw your elevator pitch out there for those who don't know, what is your business? Tell us about the A2 Collective, and then let us know what's new 2025 for A2.
By all means. So I get to be the founder of A2 Collective. A2 Collective is a community of creatives, and we work to uplift each other and to uplift social movements. So our mission is two-pronged. So we have a goal of supporting nonprofits, mission-driven spaces by providing creative services. And on the other end of that, because we understand being freelance to also be a cause, we also provide different resources and support for freelancers. So doing workshops, holding community together, that's really important to us. So we have two sides of our business. And this year, my gosh, I would say like something that's new for us is we, thank God, have a client that is able to sustain our typical operating expenses. So it's kind of like finally getting out of the mud where you can kind of like see a little bit, and trying to learn how to keep that and grow it. It's like, I think the last time that I got to talk with you, we were very much just taking what we could get. And that's still the case. Like we still, take what comes to us. But in that, it's harder to see how long you're going to have what you need to sustain your operations.
Yeah.
And this year, we're a lot more organized. So we have contracts that have, that go until like, okay, the end of this person's fiscal year. Okay, it
Nice.
goes until the end of this quarter. So you can see and plan a lot better. And it helps a lot in conversations with new clients when they say, okay, well, what's your availability like? Or what's the pricing? Because instead of just, picking numbers out of a jar, you can look at it and say, okay, I know what we need to sustain our company. When
Yeah.
we're going to have these contracts until this time. Okay, so then I have a gap here. Okay, then I need this to fill that. So it becomes a lot more clear as to what you need in terms of business. And that's something that's new for us this year. Whereas last year, I think that, we were very much in survival mode to try to just keep things afloat. And this year, we have a lot more visibility into finances. And I'm doing our finances this year. So that's
Okay.
also is
Okay.
taking on the finances myself. I just found myself at a place where I needed to have like full visibility into what was happening to be able to make those kind of decisions. It's like
Right.
when you're the business owner, you're the CEO, you know, your role or the way that I approach the role is like you want to have enough information to be able to understand the health of the business.
Right.
Now, the people that are in those areas are what give you the depth of those things, and they're experts in that. Um,
Hmm.
and you just need the top line, the few of these things to know how it affects the thing that's next to them. But I found that in getting deep in the weeds of my business financially, I could answer some questions as like the person that can see everything, like landscape
Great.
wise, that can help us better. So I made that decision. That's very new for us as well. It comes with all the things.
Wearing your math hat.
A lot of math, a lot of customer service. I'll tell you that I am constantly on customer service in QuickBooks, but thank God there are a lot of good people there that help. And it's not fun for me, but it is very rewarding to
Sure.
know what is happening and go to sleep at night. Knowing like, okay, I've resolved that.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now, how many people are you managing?
My
What's
gosh.
what are your freelancer numbers at? By the
So
way, for any freelancers who are listening,
hey y'all, I
shoot your
love y'all so
shot
much.
to A2.
I love y'all so much. I'm grateful for our team. Our team is it's a space that always is growing, and so I would say like we finished last year I think with 12 people.
Nice.
What's really important to me is when we have like 60-70% of the team on a project. So we're very project based, so everyone that's on
Nice.
our team comes on when there is a project. So
Okay.
if we meet a creator and they say like, oh, I would love to be involved inside of what you're doing, we like go ahead and put them on top of our team, but they're not on a project. So that's a different thing. You be in a
Mm.
team and come to conversations, come to events, learn about what's happening. But when you're on project, that's when I say like, okay, great, we're utilizing our team, which is really good. Like it makes me very excited when we get to employ folks and we get to like get people on stuff. I get very excited when I get to like help people, make things connect, financially. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we have like a pretty big team, but it's they're all in my mind, they're all different. They're just different groups. So every project has its own WhatsApp, and
Okay.
it's on its own like team. And then we would meet together afterwards and say, all right, cool. Like this is what's going on inside the A2 collective in general. So
Okay.
it's yeah, it's usually a lot because inside of that team, for instance, you might have a project where it's a web project, and we have the graphic designer on that project and we also have the web designer. That's just for me too. And then you have the client, who probably has a project manager on there, maybe
Mm.
like another person on their side. And so you kind of build these friendship groups with the clients. So it's like when I think of the projects, I think of everyone inside of it. And I think of like, okay, what's the chemistry like? How are things flowing? Does this person, need a bit more support there? So for me, it's always thinking of everyone in terms of groups. Like, okay, 4 people over here, 5 people over here. And sometimes some people are in 2 projects. So sometimes like, this designer's in this one and participating in this way, and they're in another capacity on another project. So that gets me really excited when we get to have a lot of people on different projects.
Sweet. So that does jump to another question that we had was regarding being a business owner. Since we're talking about A2, what would you say? I'll start with the hard stuff first. What
Okay.
would you say are the most challenging parts of being a business owner?
Definitely the hardest thing, well, there's a few things, but I would say the hardest thing, and I think that it's not talked about a lot, is being fully responsible for things that are out of your control. Um,
Mm,
so usually for us, that manifests in terms of like payroll or finance and stuff. So when you're a freelancer and you're working by yourself, and you send the invoice over and the client delays like paying you, like, oh, this sucks, like, where is it at,
I'm paying that freelancer.
that's just you, right? That's just you having that conversation with that team. But
Yeah.
it's another thing when you're the business owner and you're speaking with another business about paying your team, because to your team you have a responsibility to pay them. You've told them like, hey, I'll put you on this opportunity, you'll get paid this time, blase blase blase, right? um, and you're responsible to that, and I take that very seriously. Lord knows, God, like, especially because as freelancers we often have that story of like, yeah,
Yeah.
I have so many clients not paying me on time. So God, I thank God so much that we have a reputation that we pay on time to our team. That means everything to me.
Right.
And while that's my full responsibility, sometimes there are things outside of my control that make that like a hard thing to always accomplish, because you still are working with clients who do delay on paying things on time, and you still have payroll that needs to be ran. So like I said, like, imagine you're that one freelancer and you're like, man, I really need them to pay it, and that's just for you. But imagine you need them to pay it and it's for other people on your team that have other
Mm,
things going on in their lives, that they're waiting for this and you've told them that they're going to get it. So it's
yeah.
like, ooh,
Pressure.
that's honestly one of the things that stresses me out the most. It's just like being responsible for stuff that like I don't have control over. Like, you can send an email as many times as you'd like.
Yeah.
Be talking to the finance people and they say, yeah, it's coming, it's processing, I wrote somebody, and you're like, and yet Friday is still on the way. Friday is still coming. And you can just feel like something right here, and
Yeah. You can't jump them for the money.
that it's just huge. So it's like some people find things around it. They'll find like, okay, I want to have a line of credit,
Yeah.
to kind of get us out of the water and that thing. I'm not a debt person. I learned that last year. I'm not a debt person. Some people are very comfortable with having debt, and that's great. I am not comfortable with having debt, and so my debt tolerance is not high at all. And so
That's
I
okay.
try everything to not have those things. We have them, thank God, but Lord knows I don't want to use them. Like, I mean, I'll tell you like the truth. One time we were in a crunch like that, like, oh my God, they don't send this invoice by tomorrow. Like, I don't know how it's gonna happen. And I called up our bank and I said, hey, like, I know we have this line of credit. What is it like if we use it? What's the interest rate on this? And they came back with no exaggeration. I had to read the message several times to understand. I said, what's the interest rate on it? They said it's 25%. And I said, okay, so is it 25% over the month? They told me it was 25% daily interest. Because
What?
I was in my mind, I was like, okay, payroll's gonna run on Friday. Cool. If I just take this money, I'll have it maybe by Monday or Tuesday. I can pay it back. Cool. Maybe I won't have a ton of things I'm ever paying, especially if we haven't reached even a week of maturity. No, they're like, from that day, I would have been paying 25% on every. I said no.
Oh my
And that
goodness.
made me realize we need a new banking partner.
Facts. Good
So,
for you. Good for you. It's like, and thank you for your
and
service.
thank you
We
so
will
much.
be going elsewhere.
This can't continue. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way that this should even be considered. This is not small business banking. Like, I don't
No.
I don't know what small business this would be feasible for. So
Mhm.
stuff like that. That's the hardest thing about owning a business. I would say just moments like that where you're like, I'm not in control of how another team runs their finances, but I am responsible to my team to make sure that they do pay their invoices, and
Yeah.
having backup plans or things like that to make sure that you do well on the commitments you've made, and then you go chase the client. But whoever the contractors are, they don't need to be doing that.
Right, right. What would you say are the most rewarding parts?
Oh man, man, some things have happened that are like, if it gets really excited, like when you're on the opposite end of that, where you're like, Chad, I got payroll for like 2 more runs. Like, I'm not worried about it. It's like, that feels great. Like it
Yeah.
lowers the stress. But the moments that make me feel like we're actually winning, like that make me feel like A2 is actually working, like the idea is actually working, is like when I see 2 team members who met in A2 talking without me there. That means a lot to me.
Oh,
That's a good indicator. Like, okay, we've brought together people who want to connect and they are finding that connection here.
that's
We
sweet.
thank God for that. Like,
Yeah.
um,
It's
something
like
that,
I did that.
yeah, like, oh my God, like it's working. Like it's the creators are talking. Like, it's like
Yeah.
they're uplifting each other. Like it feels really good. I remember one time we had a client. It was actually a new client. So we have a client, like what we call a thought leader. Like that's the size of the team. So a thought leader, like a team, we had been doing work for them, and their foundation, who pays their bills, saw our work and was like, yo,
Mm.
we would like to know what's up. So that was really exciting. So we got to work with them. But what really touched my heart was that they were all at a retreat. It was like a social movement retreat, and there were several people, organizations in the room, and some of them were our clients. It was cool when our clients know each other. And somebody said something about A2 on the microphone, and there was an audible applause that happened in the room. And then someone wrote me an email about like, hey, I was in this conference today, and I want you to know A2 was
Oh,
mentioned, and the room, really celebrated the work that y'all doing. And I was like, my God, it's like, wow,
oh man,
that
that's
feels
great.
that feels good. Like I said, like when you can see it working, when you're like,
Yeah,
wow, I wasn't
that's
there saying
affirming.
pitch. I wasn't like there explaining anything. Like people just got it. It's
Yeah.
doing what it's supposed to do, even when I'm not there
Okay,
pushing.
brand recognition.
That that touches my heart. So those are the moments that like, nobody like usually lays those out on like, okay, this is what our performance metric is gonna be. But like I find so much joy outside of those. Those are like very intangible moments that you're like, when this happens, you got something special. So yeah, it's worth fighting for.
I love that. Okay, so in our for those of you who have not listened to the full episode, you'll need to listen to the full episode. But in our episode, we talk about Audrey's experience coming from SCAD, going straight into an internship with Nickelodeon Viacom, which that program I don't think is around anymore. I went looking for it to like link it for those who might be interested, and it looks like they dropped it. But I did want to circle back because obviously, like, it's been how many years has it been since your internship? Because that was your first job
It was
post
9 years
undergrad.
ago. Yeah. My gosh.
We're old. Um,
Even more so, I think because I left. Okay, so
no, wait, didn't you graduate in 2014?
yeah, so actually 11 years. I was thinking when I left it. It's been 9 years since I left it.
Oh, okay. So it's
Lord, it's been 11 years since I got it, but 9 years since I left it.
okay. Okay. So when you did your, do you remember what you were paid as an intern versus when they actually brought you on as an employee?
Okay, so I remember they were paying us weekly.
Okay.
Um, and I think I want to say like almost through cash and crew. Like if you work in film and TV, like sometimes they'll pay you through cash and crew. I think I was making something like $1,000 or $1,100 a week, which
Okay.
was really, really good, like in New
Yeah,
York.
because they were also subsidizing your housing
Yes,
at
definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
They give us
International House, and then it had like a meal plan associated with
exactly.
it too.
You
Yep, I
remember
remember.
good. You remember good. So it's like $1,000 of like money that you can or cannot use, which is like wow
Nice.
in New York, So that was really exciting. So it felt really really good, and it was just
I
such a
mean, straight out of undergrad, 4,000 a month is great. And if that was in New York, that $4,000 a month would be nothing. But because they were also providing you housing and food, that $4,000 might actually like take you somewhere. So
yeah.
then, how did that change when they made you a formal employee?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was either 45 or 54. I just can't remember the order of the numbers, but it
Okay.
was like around, I want to say it was like 45. And people told me like, oh, that's really good. Like, that's a really good starting salary, coming out of college. Um, I look back at that and I just don't know. But I mean,
I would disagree
I
as
don't
well.
know. I don't know.
Maybe for the industry, maybe for the experience level. I don't know. It's one of those things like how we were talking about cost of living being very relative.
Yeah.
I do think like what your starting salary should be post college is also relative on like where you are
Yeah.
too, and like how much experience are you really bringing to the table. But okay, cool. So then where did that when that job ended, you then pivoted to International House full
Yeah.
time. What were they paying you?
Gosh, I do not remember. It was not that.
Okay.
Because, with iHouse, the cool thing about that transition was that I was already working part time at iHouse before my time with Nickelodeon came to a full end, which was just a blessing. I thank God for
Gotcha.
that. So iHouse, the first, and I've been all the things at iHouse. I was first when I was working like that, they had me just as a contractor, just like she was freelance. We give her stuff every once in a while. Then when I left Nickelodeon, I said, "Hey, I have more time." They brought me on as an intern, and
Okay.
I did that intern thing for maybe a few months, and they said like, "Yo, let's make this a little bit more like permanent." And then I was back to being a freelancer, but making more money, like a full time freelancer. Because the first
Okay.
time I was a freelancer, I was more like side kind of thing, like just when they
Sure.
need it. And then from there it was like, okay, figuring out, okay, I'm gonna work X amount of hours for however many long and do a contract, like a year contract. And then we got to a place where I said, and I told them, I think I told them kind of similar to what I'm gonna say to you. It's like, you've been dating me, you know what I mean? And you're asking for wifey privileges of my time, you know what I mean? And you're not giving me that.
Can you show me some more commitment?
Yeah, I need more commitment. I need more commitment over here. And I'm living in New York. I'm still living in New York.
Right.
And at that time, the housing was not subsidized. So I was paying to live in the place that I was working, which is a blessing in the sense of like, okay, obviously, there's no commute and stuff, but you still got rent and still do, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it was really tight. And so then I was a contractor there, and then they made me full time there, and I was the creative lead. And then as I was leaving, I became back a contractor. So I've been like all the things that I house. And I've honestly, I would say that like all of that, like laddering that I did really helped me to gain the wording that I needed to step out into freelance, because I was starting to understand very well the differences between what being an employee was versus being a contractor versus being a full-time contractor versus doing something intern versus doing just something project based. So
Right.
like I had some time to play around with what I wanted inside of that space. And they called me crazy when it was the pandemic. So it was the pandemic, and they were like, I was like, yeah, I think I want to be a freelancer. And they were like, that sounds really, really unwise at this time. We're rather unstable here if you haven't seen on the news.
Right.
Everyone's clinging to, what feels safe, and you're saying that you want to like go off and do freelance. But honestly, I just know that they were trying to give me advice under their best intention of like, hey, like, I've tried that before. I know that you think that this could work out, but
Right. But
just
that was you.
but I just was like, I just remember this guy being like, to the best of their knowledge, they just don't know how to try this, and this is gonna look different, and you just gotta like listen to that fear that they're spouting, know that they mean well, and say thank you so much, but I'm gonna go ahead and take this freelance.
Yeah. Okay. I have to pause there because like I think that is like some serious wisdom right there, because oftentimes, and whether you're creative or not, right, like you
Yeah,
want the opinions or feedback of a family member or a friend or a trusted colleague or a mentor. You think you don't know what to do, so
yeah,
you're really wanting other people's feedback. And sometimes you hear things that you don't necessarily want to hear. Some things you hear things that you do need to hear. But at the end of the day, like it's your decision.
yeah,
Like you can't pin it on anybody else. And sometimes everyone else is going to say no or like discourage you from something, and you got to be able to like listen inside, because I know if I listened to what other people thought, I would have never even went to art school. Girl,
Lord.
everybody told me no, even my parents. Everybody told me no. They're like, no, that sounds risky. That sounds like a bad idea. Like
I recommend.
literally everybody told me no, but I did it anyway. So like at the end of the day, like 18-year-old Stephanie had to trust yourself. So I feel like through every stage in our career, hopefully as you get older, it's easier for you to trust yourself. But I also hope is that younger people see this one day and they're just like, oh, you know what? Like I can trust myself, you know. You don't have to have it all figured out, but if something is calling you, if something is pulling you, you gotta listen.
And you won't. Like I did not start A2 because I thought that I thought I had everything I needed. I really didn't. Like I didn't do it because I was super confident about the kind of designer that I am. Like I wasn't like, yo, my skills, 10 out of 10. I was not that like at all. Like I just was like, I
You
was
were
just curious.
called.
Yeah, I was just curious enough to know what the Lord wanted to do. That was it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
let's see what the Lord is talking about inside of this pursuit. And I'm grateful that He has provided every single day, and today and every day following it. So yeah,
How old is A2 now? How many years old?
we are three. We're
Oh,
three. We're three. And it's like I've been a freelancer since, gosh, I've been a freelancer probably like 9 years. But I would tell you like every bit of that. And I didn't want to do freelance, which is the wildest thing of the whole story. But I was horrified of freelance in college. And I was like,
yeah.
people that want to do freelance are wild. Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? I wanted a desk. I wanted a desk with stability and assignments. Like I wanted it to be very laid out.
Yeah.
So it's only God's humor that now I not only am I a freelancer, but I also work
Well,
with
you stepped
freelancers.
into the boss in you. You stepped into your leadership. Yeah. No, you totally stepped into your purpose.
Yeah.
Now, is your primary salary has all 3 years has been coming from A2?
Yes, all three.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
From people that said like don't jump. It's like that's what I see when I see those 3 years. I see what wow.
Yeah.
So that's 3 years of this idea, like still like doing what people didn't think it could do. Like so
Yeah.
yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so now how many years were you in Peru? Or have you been in Peru? Because technically that's still home for you.
Yeah.
Six months out of the year, is it still? Or have
Yeah.
you changed up your cadence?
So I left. So at what year? So this would be year 3, and I do plan to go back.
Okay.
So I do plan to go back. So this would be year 3. I moved on my 30th birthday. It was honestly like in some ways like a wedding for myself. My family was there, like they sent me off, like, and I
Yeah.
felt like I reconnected with me. Like this is beautiful. So that happened my 30th birthday, and I moved to Peru that same summer.
Wow.
So yeah, it still feels like, it still feels like one of the greatest decisions I've gotten to make for myself, and I love it. I love Peru.
And
I
you're
love
there 6 months out of the year, right?
Yeah, last year I actually went for I actually was there 9 months out the year, which
Okay.
a lot. But it's because I decided to study. I
Oh,
decided,
right.
yeah, I decided to be a student there, and that was actually a huge opportunity. So
So
yeah,
tell me about that. What did you upskill yourself on?
so I
In Spanish, mind you, because you are in a Spanish speaking country. So this second
yes,
language. Well, I mean, that's like another check on the fluency board. Like,
it felt so good. Like it was such a huge challenge, but I'm so grateful that I did it. Like it was a course called behavior design.
okay.
It's a school called UTech. Based in Lima, and it's a school that's very about technology. They're very much like innovation, kind of like very very forward focusing environment. And I was like, man, the school's energy is so exciting. And I also was really excited about the idea of like, I'm gonna have to learn this in Spanish, because it's like when it's your second language, it's like you have to know they're not going to be in there like talking about conjugation. Like they're here talking about the subject matter. So
Como
there's
se dice? Like, there's no time for that.
they're going to no, no. So it's like it was huge. Like, I mean, I wanted to learn behavior design because I have an interest in service design.
Okay.
I'm very interested in knowing how to better processes because it just, I don't know. I get so frustrated when I walk into a place and I'm like, why is the line over here? Why is the sign over here? Why is the entrance this way?
The
Like,
designer in you.
I feel like instead of complaining, I could actually try to turn this into something to offer people to better
Yes,
their
beautiful.
services. So I'm interested in service design, and behavior design is a cousin of service design.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, this would be great. I can better my Spanish. I can learn a new skill, and I can get a student visa. Like this is amazing. So
Ah.
it was not an easy situation at all to get that student visa. Like I flew back to Peru
What were
and
the benefits of a student visa?
honestly just getting to stay there like 6 months. On your normal tourist visa, you can stay 6 months, but you have to break it up into two intervals. So you
Oh,
can't.
so you were coming back for a little bit and
I
then
was
going.
always having to come back, and I was
Okay,
like,
okay,
man, I want to just be able to stay. So the student visa allows you to stay 6 months continuously.
okay.
But it was a story. It was like when I left Peru, the time before I applied for the student visa, they were like, "Oh, you can't come back for a year," and I was like, "Where? Where does that say that?" Like, and that's the thing about working through immigration is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of discretionary things happening. So it's a lot of like, this is what the rule is, but ultimately the person at the airport or the immigration official has the right to say whatever to admit you or to not admit you. And
Okay.
sometimes the information that they get, by the time that they get it, it's now old or there's a new thing in place. And so it's really hard talking to people who you are trying to get information, they saying that they have information, and you read something else and it's different information. Your country's website says something in their country's website. It can be very
Jeez.
it can be a lot. And so I was like, I left Peru really shook up about that. I was like, I definitely want to go back. But I knew I couldn't go just back as a tourist. Like I was like, I think they're on to me. So it honestly just made me more serious about like, okay, how am I going to do this? Like what are the ways that I can do this? Like, and in Peru, like to get a visa that like, to stay longer, you have to work there. You have to either get married, you have to have a kid. Like it's not like you can just buy property and get in that way.
Oh,
So
wow.
the ways that you have to become a resident, a legal resident, are usually around work, school, or you can do some what do you call it, missionary trips and things. But unless you feel called to, I wouldn't use missionary. I don't know. You need to talk to the Lord about that. So I don't feel like the Lord has called me to do that. So yeah, so like I spent the summer like doing all the research, gathering all the paperwork and everything before entering the country.
Okay.
So that when I got to the airport, I would have everything in case there was a problem. And boy, was there a problem. I got there and they were like, yeah, I can't let you in. I was like, what? And he was like, I can't let you in. You've used all your days. And I was like, and I had already prayed. I've been praying about it so much. And I just decided
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna let happen whatever you want, Lord. I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna make a scene, Lord. Like I just said, okay, so how many days can you give me? He said, I can't give you any days. I said, okay. And I said, well, I'm here to study. I said, I'd already paid for the class, which was like, I want to say like maybe $2,000
Mhm.
for 6 months. I already paid for the class. I had already applied for my, you have to go get your fingerprints done at the police station in Peru in order for it to go. I had already applied for my appointment. My appointment was going to be the next day. So I'm explaining
Mhm.
all this to him. I'm like, I have everything that I just need to be let in. But you do have to be let in first as a tourist, and then they convert it over to a student or a
I
business.
see. I see.
But you first got to come in as a tourist because it's harder to get it at while you're out of the country. So he just literally just took like a deep breath. He like hit on his little computer and like, someone just tapping on there, just thinking. I was like, work the Lord, work Lord, work is hard, Jesus, work is hard. And the Lord did. He said, I'm gonna give you 30 days. And I said, my God, I only need
Plenty.
one. Like I only
Yeah.
need one. And I tell you, like I so quickly gathered my belongings
Before he changed his mind.
and exited that airport. And I just left like I was trembling because I wanted to pray and cry and thank God, but I also was like, I just need to hurry up and leave.
Flexing.
But hurry up and leave. So it was a lot, but like that experience was unbelievable. Like I got to study something that is behavior design is so interesting. Like it's not as all like manipulative as it sounds. It's something that we're all very aware of, but we just probably don't
Yeah.
have the vocabulary to acknowledge it. So it's like, when Amazon is like, hey, do you want these shoes? When you have 3 pairs left, and you're like, I gotta get them now. It's those motivating factors. How do you like push and pull people to do certain things? And then even the opposite, it's like when you want to cancel a subscription and they make it super hard for you to do that. It's the same thing. It's like, how do I add these barriers of friction to discourage this behavior and all? So it's just knowing how to look at a business goal, create motivators or discouragers so that the business improves in this way. So very exciting. Learning it in Spanish and meeting new friends and making presentations in Spanish. And there were times where like, our class was just that every 4 weeks we would get a new professor. So we had one professor, but we had experts come in and they were the people that would teach us. So it was a lot because, everyone's accent is different. And so our first professor was from Spain, Colombia, Peru. So it's like those first few classes, my brain is getting used to hearing a new voice and a new pattern. And also it's a web class. So there's like all these other people that are talking in the chat. And then also there's my group, because we have a group project and we are on WhatsApp and they're also talking in there. And I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed.
You're listening, you're reading, you're
I'm texting.
Goodness.
There were times where I was like
the formal slang, the
GIFs, the stickers, like
the jaws.
Like there'd be times where I would be so overwhelmed. Like I was like, I had to learn how to, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put the camera this way. We're going to make this box this way, close this way, like, because and I had to just learn like, what can I tolerate? And like this person, you don't realize, I think maybe we do. And I also, there were some cultural things. Like I think in our classes, we're very aware of time. So like if somebody's asking a long question, we're like, hey, let's wrap this up. Let's finish this up. We're approaching the time, right? That's culturally not what was happening. Like people, I would think like, man, this question is really going on. Like I in my mind, I'm like, I bet everybody's so like tired of hearing. And that would finish. And then another person raised their hand. I'm like, they're not feeling it. Like they're all in it. And it's like, culturally, there are things that are like, wow, like that's so different, like than what I was expecting. So
more patience, more grace,
like, okay, like, you know what? Let me just watch. Like I'm also at that same time working full time in A2. So I'm like, Audrey, let's try to figure out, do we need to be like that person at A2 even in this class setting? Like it's okay to give myself permission to like, I'm going to be a receiver of information here because I've been giving information all day during my workday, like, and know how to give myself that space so I can recuperate, so I can be a student and not feel like in every space. But God is good, because honestly, Steph, like once I learned how to get into the class mentally, all that came right back. I was back to delegating. I was back to leading assignments. I was like, is this really happening?
The
like
confidence came up
in Spanish. Like that's the thing that really threw me. I was like, wow.
I want that for me. I love this so much for you. This is very motivating.
I could not get over. I was like, wow. And I guess it just taught me something about myself, is like, I can't see a hole and not feel it. Like I could feel moments where I was like, okay, it feels like we're lacking clarity here. And what I found, what was really touching, is that it's not always a language barrier. When you're in class and you don't understand something that's said, whether in English or in your second language, if you don't understand it, you can ask for clarity. And likely other people are also seeking clarity. It's not just the girl that's learning Spanish. So it's like, there were times where like I would ask a question and I would be like, it's probably because I didn't understand that word. It's a new word, whatever. And I find that other people also didn't understand. And they've been speaking Spanish all their life. And I was like, wow, like, So I got to many times help bring clarity, whereas I thought I was going to be such a burden, because in our classrooms, it's like, Chica, just look it up on your own time. But it's like in this cultural space, it was
like, don't you have a translator or something?
Please, like, just look it up. I emailed her after the class. Like, it's like,
you feel like people were really kind to the fact that like Spanish was your second language? Like, were people impressed?
So they were so nice. They were so impressed. They were so patient. They were all of my professors were, whenever I asked questions or contributed to conversation, they were always so affirming. They were always like, Audrey, that's such a great question. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I'm like, because it took a lot. Because it's like,
yeah.
Yeah. And my professor, I loved him so much. He inspired me so much, like, about being a professor, being a teacher. Like, I was so well supported in that class by my classmates, by my teammates, by everyone that we got to learn from. It was an amazing experience. Like, and honestly, it's one of those certificates that I am in love with. I cannot wait to frame that. I cannot wait to frame that.
I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
That's amazing. So, tell me, as we start to kind of wrap, what's the goal that you have for yourself this year?
Yeah, I actually just got to sit down and set it.
Okay.
I know that as a business owner, like, we're thought to like have a whole board of like, this is what we'll hit, and I'm still learning how to come into that in my own version. I am a person that has for a long time just allowed like what has come to come. And I will plan out like, maybe like what I'd like to happen, but like a goal and stuff, like that's still something that's new for me to work towards. I may have long-term goals, but like short-term goals, I'm still working towards. So, but I'm reading a book on negotiation, which tries to centralize negotiation as mediation. One of the things that it teaches you is that you have to know what you need. And I was like, and here we go. And so I sat down and like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and write this out. What do I need?
Yeah.
What do I need? I, for a while, have had a goal of like, I've wanted to be more, like have a more fixed home. Like, even if I continue to travel, I've wanted to have like, okay, Peru, I have an apartment there. That's my place. Like, and I have the rights to be there. I have a visa to be there. Like, that's been a goal. The one goal that I'm really focused on this year is paying off my student loans. I have a very set goal, like number wise, that I want to reach. And I can even see like some indicators of like, okay, if we get this, and I can do that. Okay, great. And that makes me feel really good. Because I just don't want to have any debt. I got to mention earlier, I don't like having debt.
Yeah.
And even though I know that it's debt that I needed to take on, and I don't have any weirdness about having to have requested it, but I do want to settle it, So
it's a different type of weight taken off of you, and that type of stuff weighs heavily on some more than others. So I get that.
Yeah. So that's a big goal, is to really make a big dent in my student loan debt by the end of next year.
Okay. And then where are you thinking about a home base?
I mean, definitely I want to go.
What you're scouting for?
I definitely want to go to Peru, but I think that next, I think I might go to Mexico because something that's really important to me. So what I've been doing with a lot of these trips is I'll stay at different Airbnbs, and I always try to stay at Airbnbs that have characteristics in the home that I'd like to experiment with. So for instance, like one of the places I stayed in Colombia had 2 floors. I was like, would I like having 2 floors, or will I get tired of going up and down steps? And I found that I actually like having 2 floors. So like rules like that I can aggregate into one list and say, this is the list of characteristics I'd like to have in a home, versus going out and having the market tell me what is available. I want to be able to say, no, I need a balcony in my bedroom. I've experienced not having it. I've experienced having it, and I don't want to go back. So I get to know, I get to play with that, So instead of kind of sometimes that goal, like I said, of having a fixed home, in the interim of that, like not having that yet, how can I use this thing that's always flux to like inform a decision. And so like instead of it being like, oh, I still don't have it yet, it's like, okay, well, all this information right now, all these different homes that I'm going to is going to have to give me information that helps me inform what I want to do later. So yeah, I've gotten to play around with a lot of different home types. I'm looking forward to playing with more of them, and then being able to go to the Lord with a very clear wish list.
I love that. I love that. We do have some people watching. If anybody has any questions for Audrey, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I have one final question for you, and that is, what tools or resources are keeping you sharp as a creative? Want to just leave some ideas and things out there for people, but yeah, what are you leaning onto? I know right before we started, you had talked about you actually came back to Instagram just for this kind of stretch of time, and you were off of it for a while. So, and I think a lot of people are navigating either away from Instagram, whether it's full-time or part-time. And I love that for us. I love that for just our generation being cognizant of that. I know I'm personally, like, I'm utilizing Instagram more so through the web, because I found that I will not scroll on the computer. So I can kind of do what I need to do business wise, but I scroll on my phone, but I won't scroll on the computer. I'm really just going in there like, oh, how does that look on the grid, or respond to this message and that kind of thing. And then I keep it moving.
Yeah.
And I like that relationship with it. So yeah. So what are some tools and resources that you're doing that's keeping you sharp?
That's a really good, I'm doing that too, actually. Like I will go to Instagram.com on my phone. And because it's limited, it'll be like, oh, you can't do this. I'm like, fine, I'll log on.
Perfect.
Like, great. That's the limit that I need to be today. And like, so I agree with that. I would say that, I mean, like, we have team stuff that helps us. So we use Asana, we use the Google, we use all that stuff. But Asana. I would say Asana's great. I was definitely like somebody that was a little afraid of all of that, but I am our project manager now, and I actually really appreciate it. So that's helpful. Something that really helps me to like take a breath is I go to museums. So every place that I visit, I always try to find the modern museum that I can go to and look at contemporary art and remember why I love all of it. Honestly, it gets me off of the screen. It gets me out into the community. And that's my thing that I do. So usually I don't have meetings on Fridays. So typically Friday is my field trip day. And nice. So I would take a field trip to the museum.
Nice. I love that.
It really helps a lot. It helps so much. And I mean, I love fashion. So I'm going to take a sewing class soon.
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. And one of the things
now, about to come out with the line.
Y'all better watch out now. This is original now. But like one of the things I do, don't be surprised. I go to when I go to the mall, because no one's in the malls anymore. But I go to the mall, and it's crazy. And I'll go to like an Adidas store or Puma store, and I'm going there as if I'm in a museum, because I'm just there. Lord knows I shouldn't be in there buying nothing, but I just want to see what are they doing, what are they mixing, why does that make sense, and like I go to those kind of things to look around and play around with design. But yeah, there's not a ton that I'm doing on the computer after work, because I'm on the computer all day for work. When I'm talking to somebody, I'm actually doing, designs. So I really try to, when it's come to refueling, to do something that is not
out in the wild.
Yeah.
I love that. Sweet. Well, we're going to close on a community question.
Okay.
I've got one from LinkedIn from Ashley. It says, hi, Audrey. I'm not in the creative industry, but this has been inspiring. In regard to living abroad and living in your creativity, what are some steps that you take to feel protected as a woman of color?
That is a wonderful question. And I know people say all this time on chats, but no, that's a really good question.
Genuinely.
That's really good. I'm going to give you everything I know. So there's some things that I acknowledge in my safety that I need. And I think that sometimes it might take a minute to just sit down and to kind of name those things. So I need safety for the fact that I'm a believer in the Lord. So I need that kind of space. I need spiritual safety.
Mm,
I also am a person that is same-sex attracting. So I have to be aware of how those things are understood in the culture that I'm going to so that I am safe socially. I'm also a Black woman, and I'm also a bit taller than a lot of women in the culture that I'm in. So sometimes it takes a minute to sit down and distill, like, what kind of safety do I need in this kind of space, and does the space offer it? So those are some, like, I think some interpersonal things that you can, like, first check with about yourself, because all that will vary depending on person. Then some very practical things are, there are a ton of Black women traveling, which means that there are a ton of WhatsApp, Facebook chat groups that will tell you everything from, you know, where you can buy jerk chicken to where you can get your braids done. Like, and they will of course tell you, like, what the safe areas are and what they aren't. I'm so grateful that as Black women, we share so much information with each other. We don't do a lot of gatekeeping in the international Black communities because we know so much of us are trying to understand things. So I find that people who have traveled are already in a mental space that's different because you've
yeah.
already had to take a leap to be here. So you're not really trying to gatekeep. And then, very practical, my mother gave me a taser. She always wants to be charged. So certain things that I do, I don't go out at certain times at night. But more importantly, I don't, if I'm lost, I don't walk on the same street twice. So, like, I don't, like, go up and down, like, because I know that I
Smart.
call attention to myself because of the way that I look, the way that I dress. And so if I am lost, I will duck into a place, try to get some information, maybe either from the person that's in there or just sometimes look at my phone without being in the streets looking at my phone. So I'm just very aware of those kinds of things because people are watching. People are watching me. I know that. I can feel that. In Latin America, they don't hide that they're watching me. So it's not even like, it's like full
Yeah.
blown watching me. So I just am hyper aware of how much attention I'm calling to myself and then adjusting based on that, and if I have to just stop walking, then just stop, but I don't try to pretend to be normal because I know that I stand
Yeah.
out.
Sweet. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, of course, of course.
Love it. Well, thank you, Audrey, for joining me. So proud of you and love the journey that you're on. Thank you for being open to sharing of your story.
Yeah.
For, again, anybody, A2 Collective, please feel free to reach out to Audrey if you have any design needs. I know I am looking forward to returning to a point in my life where I can afford the A2 Collective because I want some design services for me and my business. As creators, we do everything ourselves, so I am my PR, I am my own project manager, I am my marketing manager, I am the CEO of Stephanie. And I think we're all the CEOs of ourselves, right? So I think this is important when there's opportunities to outsource, just like how you were saying, how it's so great to be able to, like, pay your employees. I feel the same way, whether it's my own thing or I have another project. I love being able to, like, put on my other artist friends.
Mhm.
So I'm very excited for my next big project. I already know what design firm I'm working with, and I got all
Please.
these people, like, lined up in the bag. So
There you go.
it's a
You
good
do.
thing to have. Well, I hope that people do reach out and connect with Audrey. And yeah, if you haven't listened to the episode, Audrey's episode number 1 on the In Between Artists podcast with Next Chapter Podcast Agency. You can listen to it anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to see our beautiful faces, you can also watch it on YouTube. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining, Audrey.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.